Speaking of gift giving, the power of reciprocation is a big one. And it's not just because of guilt. It's also because we as human beings, as social people, right, for the million years of evolution that we've got, have felt this desire when someone does something for us to give back to them, right? It's like an obligation for us. And it's a very powerful thing. I want to take you to Portland, Oregon, to a company called Urban Airship, which is a cousin of ours, also funded by some of the same people who fund us, and fund Moz. And Urban Airship had this great campaign that was just like a brainchild of their marketing team. They thought, hey, we're really trying to reach into companies and speak to the people who are responsible for mobile messaging apps. In fact, for push notifications. Push notifications would be the ones where your phone automatically updates when someone likes a status of yours on Facebook, or you get a little message when someone's uploaded a photo of you, that kind of thing. Urban Airship has a service for that that's used by a ton of big companies, including Foursquare. And they were trying to reach the people responsible, usually technical people who have some sort of marketing obligations as well in these companies. And so they sent them, for those of you who know Portland, of course you know what I'm going to say next, right? These are custom longboards, skateboards. They're like the most super hipster things you've ever seen. They have these custom painted patterns. And they are super cool, but less than 0.01% of the population of the US longboard skateboards. It's like a lost art. No, it's not a lost art. It's never been an art. Like nobody does that. And yet, when they send these out to these folks, you know what happens? They get a call or an email every single time. They have yet to send one out to a company and not have them be like, whoa, that longboard skateboard is amazing. I put it in my office. I love it. It's awesome. What do you guys do? The power of reciprocation. You get a call back every single time. And you can use this on the web too. This is a very powerful thing. So Noise Trade has a system. It's like Pandora or the 61 or even Spotify. They've got a system whereby independent artists upload their songs, their music, to the site. And then if you like that, you have this little slider, and you can choose to tip the artist. Artists who upload here make more money per view, per listen to their song, than they do on iTunes. More money per song than they do on iTunes. This is crazy. This is listen to my music for free. You have no obligation to pay me anything. And yet when you do, they are willing to pay more. More. It's incredible. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But it's because of the power of reciprocation. We feel an obligation to do this. Give and ye shall receive. So a lot of the time when I'm talking about SEO, there's this myth. And the myth goes, SEO is about trying to rank #1. Right? If you look at any distribution chart of search engine clicks, right? The #1 position gets about 38, 39% of clicks. Position 2 is like in the 21%. Then it goes down to like 11%, and then it drops into the 6-7 range and goes down from there, right? Hence, everyone says, oh, I got to be in the top 3 and really top 1. That's where I'm going to get all of my value. And this is pretty weird because when I ask people to reflect on their searching habits, I'll show you what actually happens when we search. Best restaurants in Phoenix. PhoenixRestaurants.com. I've never heard of that. New Times. Maybe that's the local newspaper? I don't know. AZ Central. Never heard of it. Oh, Urban Spoon. Yeah, that's a good site. I like them. Yeah, I might check that one out. About.com. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had a great experience with About.com. And oh, Yelp. Yes, I love Yelp. Yelp is excellent. I know they've got a ton of coverage. Totally going to check that out. This is how most of us search when we're doing non-branded searches, meaning I'm not searching for specifically the Phoenix New Times or the Aviva Conference Center, right, or whatever that brand that I'm searching. When I'm doing a non-branded search, this is how search works, right? This is how we do it. And yet we're always trying to get to #1. I would urge you to think about the brand that you're creating, the snippet that you're creating, right? That familiarity familiarity of your domain, associations with your domain, associations with your brand breeds trust, and people are drawn to those familiar things. Your click biasing is extremely strong. In fact, just a few months ago, Google themselves came out and announced that if you have this right here, this is the Google rel author markup that allows an image to show, right, of you next to anything you've published, as long as you connect it up to your Google Plus account. This biases clicks by more than 15%. These people see 15+% higher click-through rate than they normally would with a standard listing. Pretty incredible. It's that familiarity breeding trust again. For this reason, the classic worlds of branding and brand marketing and advertising that many, many professional marketers are familiar with, but sadly, many SEOs are not familiar with, I think these worlds need to come together. I think it's been too long that we've worked apart. And in fact, I'll blame myself for this. I always thought, traditional advertising, it costs so much money, ROI is not there, SEOs, all this free traffic, and it's wonderful. But in fact, all that advertising stuff does a wonderful job of influencing this. Number 9. I'm going to have to race a little bit because we're behind a bit, but isidewith.com. This was a website during the election, and they did a brilliant thing. They asked me to take quizzes, well, anybody, to take a quiz to see which electoral candidate you sided with, and then they would give me this. You see what it says? Because of you, 25% of people have taken this quiz. Oh, only 25. Dude, I am not going to let that stand. That's not cool. I'm tweeting it again. I'm putting it on Facebook. I'm putting it on Google+. I'm going to email some people. I am spreading this. I cannot stand that I only got 25 people to take that quiz. It's that ego, right? The ego. Why do we use Twitter? Why do we blog? If we're honest with ourselves, right? A lot of that is about self-fulfillment. I mean, I know that inside me is a deep hole with a colander at the bottom that needs constant positive reinforcement, telling me that things are going well and replying to my tweets and retweeting them. And if I don't get it, oh my God, I'm going to dry up and die. I'm not actually, but this is how a lot of us work on the web. And so providing that information, that stroking of that ego and that telling of the data makes it so that more and more people were sharing I Side With. Have you ever taken a taxi cab in New York City or Las Vegas? I see a few people nodding their heads. They've got a system that looks like this. You enter your tip, right? And it says $12.20 is the fare, and then they've got options, 30%, 25%, 20%. I didn't actually know, but you can click these numbers and enter your own tip. But I wasn't sure whether it would enter a percent or an actual dollar amount, and so I always just click these. A 20% tip on a cab, by the way, even by US standards, pretty good. 25%, that's like, whoa, 30%, what the? Did that cabbie take you to, I don't know, lunch first? It's crazy. It works so well that New York cab drivers saw a 20% boost in their tip rates. And of course, they lost a little bit because they switched to credit card machines. But this is what helped the NYC city give them this and get them to adopt credit card usage. That default is what triggers it. You can see this with SlideShare. I apologize that this is a little dark, but actually right in here, this iframe, this allows SlideShare to control the default and give you the link that points back to SlideShare. This means they control the anchor text, they control how many links there are, where it points back to, and that's the default that everyone uses when they embed their slide decks. If you have embeddable content of any kind, leverage the default. The default is very powerful. So we're a little bit after New Year's, but unfortunately, right, gyms fill up. People promise themselves they're going to do resolutions, and there's a reason that these fail. So I'm going to briefly tell you a story of an experiment that was done in the US where they asked people, smart people, to come in, fill out a basic arithmetic test. It was like an 8th grade level test, and they asked a control group to just take this test. They asked another group, same size, to not think about a white elephant and then take the test. But please, while you're taking this test, don't think about a white elephant. Who do you think scored higher? Control group. Control group scored dramatically higher. That seems ridiculous. What is it about not thinking about white? Is it that when we think about white elephants, our math skills go up? Or I don't know what's going on. No. It is because we are terrible multitaskers. We believe ourselves to be able to do multiple things at once, but we cannot. We're awful at it. In fact, we're so awful at it that Microsoft ran a great experiment. An experiment that you would think would totally fail. They had one set of emails announcing the Windows Surface launch that had a bunch of different features in it. And then they had another one announcing the launch that was sent over time, 3 different emails with only a single feature mentioned with a single call to action. By all rules of email spam and email marketing, you should not send 3 emails, you should send 1. And yet the 3 emails worked much better because there's only a single message. People are not asked to think about multiple things at the same time and consider multiple features. They are merely asked to do one. Multiple short requests for action over time working way better than a single request with a lengthy task list. This simplicity is carried through to the world of design. One of the most effective ways that we've recently seen on the web, and you can see a lot of this coverage on Hacker News for this blogging platform called Subtle, which is spelled S-V-B-T-L-E, because they're super hip and way too cool for use. If you look, they've got this platform for kudos, right? And kudos work by hovering your mouse over it, and then it lights up and gives you this thing. It's the only call to action on the page, but it gets a ton of interaction. In fact, more interaction than any other UI element of its kind because of that simplicity. So Christie's and Sotheby's. Christie's and Sotheby's still, despite the power of the internet and its reach, still focus on just having all of their auctions in person. In a room like this, right? Filled with, and you all have paddles and you hold up the paddles. That seems crazy. Right? I mean, it seems like obviously we would be way happier if we could, I should not get too close to that speaker, if we could get on the internet and be able to do the bidding. Hasn't eBay taught us anything? No, in fact, in person, we are so hyper-competitive as a species that getting way fewer people into a room is better than having a dispersed collection of folks on the internet who can logically think through, oh, maybe that painting is not worth $1.7 million. So maybe I should reconsider. But the competition in us breeds effectiveness. And you can see this in action on the web through a service called Linksy, which does something brilliant. You send Linksy out to a list of your friends, let's say 10 people inside your company who are influencers over social media, and you ask them to share something. And what do? They give you a leaderboard that shows who is most effective in sharing a particular piece of content. Genius, right? There's no way I'm going to let Sergio out-earn me in terms of clicks. I'm going to share until the cows come home so that I can win out. So second to last one, I'm going to take you to San Marcos High School in Texas. And at San Marcos High School, they had a bunch of problems with trying to get people to go to college, trying to get high school students to go to college. And so they made a system that got them from 51% to 65%. Massive increase, huge for their community. And it was done extremely simply. The only thing that they required was that while you're at San Marcos High School, before you can graduate, there is a graduation requirement that you must fill out just one, to any college. It could be a community college application, and they'll help you do it. They'll even provide financial aid if you can't afford the $40 or $50 application fee. And this moved the needle dramatically on college acceptance rates and on kids going to college. It's almost unimaginable that you could think, wow, we're going to drive up college application rates just by getting people to apply. That's all we have to do, and yet it is. It is. This is gamification in action. Right? We're essentially saying during your time at the high school, we're going to gamify the system so that you have to do this one task. I sometimes play games online, and in this particular game, Kingdom Rush, they'll give me an extra star, which makes my little guys shoot further, which is really useful in the game. Just take my word on it. They'll give me a little star if I share it on Twitter and post it on Facebook. So you know what I did? I waited until like 2 a.m. on a Friday because I was so embarrassed about playing games to share it because I wanted the stars, but I didn't want everyone to see that I wanted those stars, right? Earning this inside the system makes it valuable, provides those shares. Last thing I'm going to mention, repetition and modeling. So a lot of the time, You know, you might share this presentation online, for example, through Twitter, and you think to yourself, aha, I've shared it. Now I am done. I shouldn't share it anymore, otherwise I'll burden my audience and I get complaints when I share something more than once. And yet, this data comes through a tool called FollowerWonk, which is a company that SEOmoz bought recently. And you can see the percent of my Twitter followers that are online throughout the day. At the maximum high point, between 8 and 9 p.m., 6.2% of my followers are on the internet. 6.2%. If I share again, they're not even going to be the same people. I could share 2 or 3 times, maybe even 4 during the day, and probably get a couple complaints from people who are addicted to Twitter and reach many more audiences. I would urge you to think about this in your social media planning, that it's okay to share more than once. By the way, if you've enjoyed this stuff and you're interested in learning more about behavioral psychology, how it impacts marketing and human behavior, check out Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein's book, Nudge, about which this presentation was based a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. That's fantastic. OK, guys, we have some people with roving mics. We'll have maybe time for 2 questions max, because I need to get you to your next room. And I also need to give you 3 simple pieces of information. But let's ask the questions first, OK? Anybody got a question? Here we go, yeah.
Just in relation to social proof, do you think if you move the percentage down to like maybe 20% of people reuse their towels is like a reverse psychology? Do you think it works?
If you use a
lower percentage.
A lower percentage. Oh, if you say, for example, only 20% of people paid their taxes, would fewer people pay them?
Just no, it's in relation to the towels thing.
The towels in the hotel.
Like you want to be different, you want to be...
Yeah, I want to be different. I want to be the person who doesn't reuse my towel. Well, so yes, I would certainly say that from a psychological perspective, you're going to do well to use the actions you know. If I were running a hotel, I may be tempted to bias that number up a little bit, right? Like it's not... It's definitely not going to work nearly as well if you say a small number of people or a small percent of people are doing an action. That would be my guess. I haven't tested it.